Welcome to the Good Success Podcast. We have an amazing show scheduled for you today, but before we get started, let's have a word from our sponsors. Radius Renovation Group is a full-service construction management solution for investors of single-family and small multifamily investors in 25 states. Whether you own one property or hundreds in different states, the goal is to be your one-stop shop for all your construction needs, to increase property values, and to give you a positive and profitable outcome. Using their 8-step process, Radius will walk the project, complete a line-by-line scope of work and estimate, schedule work with licensed and Radius certified contractors, manage the project and contractors, pay the contractors as work is completed, provide quality control throughout the project, and when the project is complete, do a final inspection. Clients are provided with login access to Radius's cloud-based project management platform to view work schedules and updated photos of each job. There is even the ability to directly message the project manager. Radius only works with real estate investors, so they speak your language and understand your needs, from project timing to investor-friendly pricing. If you're an investor who is done trying to manage contractors and rehabs on your own, it might be time to consider having Radius as your partner. To put their expertise to work for you today, visit the Radius website at www.radiusreno.com or call them right now at 417-730-9777. And now, back to the Good Success Podcast.
Where the mind goes, the man follows. And that's just so true and so powerful. So just make sure you're putting good stuff in your mind, because if your mind and your thoughts don't go there first, then your body and your life is never going to follow.
Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Culler. Got Tom Olson, President of Good Success,
That's
sitting
me.
right next to me. That's you. That's all
me.
you.
We got two Toms on today. Tom.
Two Toms. This is Tom Squared. The show is going to be called Tom Squared. So today we're excited to have out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Very jealous of that. I love Fort Lauderdale. I got family that live down there. But we got Tom Nardone, the Millionaire Mailman himself, on the show today. Tom, what is going on?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here, and beautiful day here in South Florida in spring, and just excited about being here, and thanks for your invite.
Yeah, now he's just rubbing it in.
Yeah.
So
Yesterday was the first day of spring and it's 80 degrees.
Yeah, yesterday was the first day of spring. It was like 30
Yeah,
here.
it was raining all day
Yeah.
yesterday. Today, I think a high of 50 today.
Yeah.
So 49, 50.
Not
here.
cool. Tom, is there a lot
It
of
is
cowboys
cool.
in
No,
Fort
Josh, it is
Lauderdale?
cool.
Actually, yeah, the town I'm in is actually Parkland. It's kind of sandwiched right in between Fort Lauderdale and Boca Raton. And actually, this is an equestrian town. A lot of my neighbors have horses. I'm not a horse guy myself. Don't get me wrong. I've told you everything I know about horses so far on this podcast, which is not much. But I do have a 2-stall barn in the back. We converted into my office, scraped out all the dung and all the straw and poured concrete in there, and it's actually pretty nice. Awesome. So this is my man cave.
Very cool. Very cool.
Maybe we should take a tour of this during our mastermind. That'd be hilarious.
You guys are going to be pretty close, so yeah, make it happen.
Hey, break out the airboat. We'll go for a ride.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. It's a done deal. Very cool. So we're excited to have Tom Nardone on the show. Like I said, he is the Millionaire Mailman. So this guy has an incredible story. He was a mailman and developed that into being a real estate investor. So we're excited to hear what he's got going on. He has a lot of stuff out there. So he's a mentor. He has books out there, systems, blogs. I mean, you name it. And Tom is all over it with real estate education. And so we're excited to tap into his wisdom today and see what he has to share for us. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. Just search Good Success. You'll find us there. Or to make it easier, all you got to do is either go on your iPhone or your Android device, go to the App Store, search Good Success, and download the official Good Success app, because it's 10 times easier to listen to the show doing it that way. So go to your phone, go to the App Store, search Good Success. You'll find our big logo there. be good to go. And then the Good Success Mastermind. So he's over there pretty close to where Miami is, and maybe an hour and a half drive or so. What do you think, Tom? From Miami, hour and a half.
35. I'll be sleeping at home actually.
Okay, gotcha.
Only like 35 minutes away. It's pretty quick on the expressway. Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
Tom is actually going to join us for the next mastermind, and I'm excited about it. I'm very excited to have him.
Down in Miami, Florida. So May 14th through 18th is the dates for that event. Tom, go ahead and talk about it a little bit. It's going to be awesome.
Actually, yes, we have rented a very large boat for that middle day. So actually, it's going to be really fun to go out there on the seas. It's supposed to be really nice in May down there. So I'm really excited about coming down to Miami for the mastermind. But if you are a elite business entrepreneur, and maybe you don't even have to consider yourself an elite business entrepreneur, but if you're a businessman that's looking to have a group of people that you can trust and a group of people that is at a higher level that you can talk to, like Tom and me and you have even talked on some Financial Friends Network events that we've been on together, but sometimes it's hard to find people in your local network that you can really talk to and connect with and have a really good, meaningful conversation and learn from, because they're just not at the same level at you, or they're just thinking about totally different things than you're thinking about. And that's really what a really good mastermind will help you with, giving those people that you can not only trust, but also like go back and keep as your your top 5 or your top 10 people that you kind of go back to and talk to and keep that long-term relationship to. But not only that, it's like, I'm reading a book right now called The Richest Man That Ever Lived, kind of rereading it for our team here at the office. And one of the things talks about effective partnering, and partnering isn't always just, a business relationship that's a partner, like 50-50 partner or whatever, but partnering with people could also be counselors, and like having that effective partnering with people that you trust. And one of the worst things you could do is partner with a wrong person, but one of the best things you can possibly do is partner with the right people. And that's what I believe the Good Success Mastermind is full of the right people, full of the fewer betters. So if you want to be a part of a group that is full of fewer betters, join the Good Success Mastermind. So goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application, talk to me. We can see if you're a good fit, see if we're a good fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Community Go-Giver event's coming up June 26, 27, and 28 right here in the office in Gary, Indiana. We're selling out at 80 seats, so make sure you go pick up your tickets. And if you're not following us on social media, make sure you are, because we might be hovering around a little bit of a coupon code for you to get a nice discount on it. So make sure you're following us on all our social accounts. But Tom, talk about the Community Go-Giver event just a little bit, what people can expect.
Yeah, so I have got some amazing guests this year, really. So if you're interested in learning about self-directed IRAs, Quest will be here. There'll be somebody from there. And Josh Belk is actually going to be talking about, and he actually just started a new podcast, Belk on Business. And Josh is like a really unique person in which he's an accountant, and like 90% of his 700 plus clients are real estate entrepreneurs. So he has a really great long-term background. And it's funny because like over the years, he's taught me a lot, but I've even taught him a lot too, kind of just going back and forth. And like, I can remember the first time I went and talked to him about IRAs, and he like, no, you don't want to do that. I'm like, oh yes, you do. Like you're coming here, Josh, we're going there. So don't try to talk me out of this. This is real. It's not illegal. It's going to happen. And, but Josh is going to talk a lot about the changes and in real estate, in the law for taxation. And I think if you don't have an accountant that is in that group of people that you can go to and talk about, and if you're in real estate, for instance, and they don't really understand real estate, you've got to find somebody, and they're far and few between. So, and normally, I don't talk about the accountant when you talk about going to an event and watching somebody. But in my opinion, there are some people out there that I really believe that that's a huge value to. And whether or not you want to listen to it or not, you need to hear it. So that's a person that you may not want to hear, but you need to. And then other side, do you know Sonia Booker?
I do know.
Oh
she's
my
amazing.
Goodness. This girl she's been on the Oprah show.
She's awesome.
She has following all over the world, and she is going to be here in Gary. And she's called me 4 times, and she's so excited about coming to Gary, Indiana. So she's even coming out here this month to actually check out Gary, Indiana as a potential place for her to invest her own money, because she's working in Atlanta. And Sonia, we're actually going to start putting some stuff out about her as well.
We need to get her on the show.
But yes, so Anyways, like I am super excited about having her, and there's many, many other people I could announce, but today I just wanted to talk about her. So come and see Sonia and how she is using business. She actually helped me with this whole concept of using real estate to positively impact your community, and that's what she does with her every investment that she does. She uses real estate to positively impact her community, and I love it.
Amazing. So come see our accountant, Josh Belk, at the Community Go Giver event. That's we need to use that as a headliner.
Come
so
see Josh Belk.
Yeah, exactly. So
an accountant.
The accountants. Come hear our accountant at the Community Go Giver event. That's Josh. If you're listening, we love you, man. But yeah, communitygogiver.com. Make sure you sign up right away because we are selling out at 80 seats. Fire marshal says we can't take any more. So that's for our announcements. So Tom Nardone, not you, Tom Nardone. Let's get into the show today. So I'm excited to have you on the show. Done a lot of digging. I don't know you very well. Tom seems to know you, and I did not know you were part of the Financial Friends Network, so that makes it even better, I think. So that's awesome. So for the people who don't know who you are, do us a favor, introduce yourself. So who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing that.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Tom Nardone, also known as Millionaire Mailman. And the way that nickname got started for me was I was a letter carrier. And, back in the, late 70s, I actually started when I was just 19 years old, got a job as a postal carrier, and met my wife at the post office. And we've been married now for, going on close to 40 years, believe it or not.
It's amazing.
And, we quickly realized that, the post office, although it was a good blue collar job, it really wasn't like the dream life we had both dreamed about when we got married. So, I met up with some old Florida mentors that I discovered, Jack Miller and John Schaub and Jimmy Napier back in the early 80s. And they helped me to realize, like, Tom, you're a mailman. All day long you drive around or you walk around, you see houses all day long. Back then in the early 80s, there was no internet, right? There were no cell phones. So the way word got around, good news or bad news, was from the U.S. mail. So I quickly, through those mentors' assistance, they helped me realize what happens when somebody goes into foreclosure. Okay, they send out a certified letter. Usually it starts out with a regular letter to a homeowner who's going in default saying, hey, we didn't get your payment. Then it's followed up with a certified letter. And it was me, the mailman, who got to bring that news to the front door and actually engage with the homeowner. So that's how I got started finding deals.
Secret knowledge.
Yeah.
This is
oh man,
under the radar. Yeah.
So go a little deeper into that. So how did you even get started into real estate investing? Like what took that off for you?
Yeah. Well, as you guys know, because I'm sure you have a lot of guests that, talk about different cool, unique ways to market. Well, we're a mortgage state or not a trust deed state. So when the complaint and the Liz Pendens and the summons are filed in the foreclosure case, then it becomes public record. And then all the other investors know, and the mailing lists pick it up, and you'd see all the mail bombarding that house, looking to buy a foreclosure deal. But prior to that, when they just send out a certified letter saying, hey, if you don't get caught up in your last two payments, you're going to be in foreclosure. Well, the only people that knows about that is the person who didn't make the payment, the bank that didn't get the payment, and the mailman, because I got to bring the letter to the front door.
So you're the middleman.
I was a middleman mailman.
Yeah.
And, I would literally try to softly, engage the conversation that, I buy houses in this neighborhood.
Huh.
And, I'd like to come back in the evening in my civilian clothes because I shouldn't really do that in my uniform. And I would do that. I'd come back in the evening, I make a deal. And over a 16-year period, I bought like 35, 36 houses just with no marketing. That's like awesome. That. Yeah.
I love a zero marketing budget.
Yeah. And he was getting paid to walk around giving mail out and then making the connections. That's amazing. I love that.
Well, it got to be a little dangerous from the standpoint of wanting to have the job because, the guys I learned from, they were all about buy and hold and never, ever, ever sell. That's like how you really grow your wealth. But let me tell you, when you have 36 rental properties all on your mail route, now you've got people running out to the mailbox saying, "Hey, Tom, wait a second." And they're peeling off $100 bills. Hey, here's the next rent. I'm like, don't do that on the hood of the truck. It doesn't look good. So,
That's hilarious.
Oh, and by the way, here's your mail.
Yeah. A little trade. I'll give you your mail if you give me your rent.
By the way, yeah, that's what I was here
I think
for.
they thought you were dealing something else.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's an awesome story. I love that.
But I like to say, in a sense, I kind of started backwards. And the way I say I started backwards was I owned 36 properties and I never even sold a single house. I just kept everything I owned. So if I were to do it all over today, you know, I would probably start with more buying and selling activity first and build up a lump of cash. But I was lucky that back in the 80s, we kind of had a period of time. It was called the savings and loan crisis, where like a lot of S&Ls were going bankrupt. And it's kind of like a mini version of what happened here in the U.S. 10 years ago with the big real estate crash. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, you know, they bought like, you know, FHA and VA, they bought like, you know, with just a couple $1,000 down, and the market corrected a little bit and they were just at break even. So I was like, you know, people were just packing up their cars and leaving, and I would be in the mail truck and I'd say, "Hey, where are you going?" They say, "We're giving this house back to the bank. We don't want it anymore." And I'd say, "Don't do that. Like, give me your coupon book. Let me make the payments." And I took title subject to a lot of properties. And back then in the 80s, there was a lot of loans that were originated in the 60s and 70s that they didn't have a paragraph 17. You know, they didn't have a due on sale clause. So I wasn't even violating anything, right? In fact, it's almost fun to look at some of those old mortgages that came out back in the 70s that were FHA. They're only like 3 pages long, the whole mortgage. Now it's like a phone book when you go to the closing table to sign one, right? But those are the good old days.
Man, that's amazing. I love that story. Some great stuff. Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you're doing today now. So you're doing a lot more mentoring, and you got some blogs and books going on. So talk about that.
Yeah, I started mentoring probably years ago. I also got, I'd say probably about 15 years ago, our local Boca Raton real estate investment club, you know, kind of liked my story. And they asked me if I would come up in front of the RIA club and speak and just tell how you got started as a mailman. And when I told my story, a lot of people were really intrigued. And they encouraged me to write a book and keep on speaking. So I did that. I wrote a couple books, a couple courses. And then I went to a national RIA conference and I told my story. And before I knew it, I was booked all over the country speaking at RIA clubs. And I was kind of doing an old, like, information marketing model, I guess you can say, about, you know, schlepping around to RIA clubs and selling. It was back on, then it was on cassette tapes 15 years ago. So I got started mentoring, and now I do some local mentoring here. I have some of my own local mentoring students, as well as being an outsourced service for some national gurus that they don't want to mentor. So they kind of send the people my way, and I mentor them as well.
Sure. So why is it so important to have a mentor? So we talked about it a little bit. When we were talking about the mastermind, skimming over that. Why is it important to have a mentor? Like, what's the benefits of having a mentor, especially when you're getting started first into the real estate game?
Well, you know, as having come up from like nothing and really just kind of starting with a couple $100 left over from each paycheck I would get as a mailman, I learned ways that I could get into the market with as little money as possible. And as I mentioned, in many cases, if somebody had no equity, but I knew that there was maybe $200 cash flow, you know, there wasn't any equity, but there was some cash flow, I was willing to take the risk of doing the sweat equity myself. You know, like I said, just give me your mortgage payment coupon book. I'll take over from here, and getting in with as little and getting in light. Now, as a mentor, I really help people assess their situation, say, well, you know, how much money do you make now? You know, maybe you don't need eat money, right? If you don't need eat money, and in my case, I had mother government automatically depositing a check into my bank account every 2 weeks. I didn't have to worry about how I was going to, you know, pay for my own expenses and eat. So I would help people assess where they're at and what they need to do. And if they already have a good income, and maybe they could do this in a tax-free environment like a Roth. I mean, you guys kind of alluded to that in the beginning of this show. And that's actually a new awakening for me, believe it or not. A lot of the investing I've done in the past was mostly just on my Schedule E and in different corporations. However, I had a second born again experience about 3 weeks ago because I turned 59 and a half.
Oh boy.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
So, that's my second born again experience. So now I'm born
You
again.
bought the hat with that money, didn't you?
I'm born again into a tax-free life now. So a lot of the business I could do in a tax-free environment, and I could take it out without any taxation. So it's pretty cool.
I hope you've been enjoying this Good Success podcast, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Our next sponsor is Gary Harper at Sharper Business Solutions. Your business is a personal endeavor that you have poured your blood, sweat, and tears into, and they know that. Sharper Business Solutions is a full-service solution to help you scale your dream. Sharper Business Solution implements the Sharper process and other key systems, giving you the confidence that you need to have freedom and grow and scale your business. The Sharper team wants to come right alongside you and provide the resources needed for long-term growth and success. If you are looking to grow or scale your business, contact my friend and Good Success Mastermind member, Gary Harper, and his team to help you implement the Sharper process. You can schedule your free consultation today at sharperprocess.com. So go do it right now. Go to sharperprocess.com and schedule your free consultation with Gary and his team. Our next sponsor is Jerry Padilla from Prime Lending. Whether it's your first time buying a home or you're well adversed in the process, buying and refinancing a home can be an exciting and rewarding but sometimes challenging experience. At Prime Lending, we take the time to listen and work with you to find a home loan that fits your needs. If you're looking to refinance your loan, lower your interest rate, lower your monthly payments, shorten your term, or get cash for whatever reason you need, we have a solution for you. Prime Lending also has several options for renovation loans, so you can find what works best for you and your home project. Make sure you contact our good friend, Jerry Padilla, who is a senior loan officer and originator with Prime Lending and has over 11 years in the mortgage industry. You can learn more about Jerry and what Prime Lending has to offer you by visiting goodsuccess.com/prime lending. Again, that's goodsuccess.com/prime lending. And now, back to our show.
Amazing. Tom is just a cool cat. I mean, look at the guy. Seriously,
his
like
hat.
everybody we talk to, they're in their office, but no, Tom
He's
is just
outside.
he is so cool.
I mean, he's even got his mic set up there, his boom
but
arm and everything.
what I like about Tom is some of the things that he kind of skims over sometimes.
Yeah.
So you said you've been married for 40 years.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about good success. Talk about like the longevity, the daily disciplines. I bet you there were some times where you wanted to strangle her, or maybe probably some more times where she wanted to strangle you.
Yeah.
I remember one years ago listening to an old Dr. Dobson. Remember Dr.
James
Dobson?
Yep.
And he was interviewing some old couple that had been married 60 years. And I remember he asked him a question. He said, in 60 years, have you guys ever once mentioned divorce? And the guy looked at Dr. Dobson and he said, divorce? No. Murder? Yes. And I understand that program. Yep.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. But you know what's so cool is like today, Tom, and if you're a mentor, you probably get this all the time. So many people come with like all these excuses of why they can't do anything. Yeah. But then you have somebody like Tom that didn't have the money, didn't have, and he talked. You said you started this in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So my daughter Edie actually interviewed her uncle, who was a missionary to Africa for like 30 years and still kind of is a missionary there. And one of the things that he said that I thought it stood out in my mind at least was back at that time, missionaries have to go on deputation to raise support. Back then, the way he had to raise support was he had to go to the library to find out which churches may be interested in him calling him. His whole process of, so think about that. Think about what Tom had to go through. He didn't have the resources we have now.
You can't send him a Facebook message.
Like, really, seriously. You can't set up a Facebook group that says, I buy houses, and then all of a sudden people just start posting their houses on Facebook. It's amazing what we have at our fingertips today, and to think that we still have excuses is just mind-boggling to me. So yeah. I really commend you, Tom, for that, and I really commend you, honestly, the 40 years of marriage. Me and my wife have been married for 21 years. And that just doesn't happen. Even the guy we just had on the show was like 19 years. I love attracting to good success that type of people and those type of people that are willing to stick it out and go through those things, but also willing to not have an excuses attitude. No excuses attitude. It took you how long to get out of your job?
It took me about 16 years.
16 years.
I left when I was 35. That was in 1995. Yeah.
So it's funny because on the flip side, I was also in a marketing meeting about 3 weeks ago, and it's kind of funny to try to market to people like Tom. We can't find them. They're not on social media half the time. They're not on these places. And where are they at? They're sitting in like this. This is who they are right here. Like this is my perfect avatar for the Good Success Mastermind. And it's kind of funny because it's so true, because these guys are successful, but they're not out there flaunting it. They're not they're not all over the place. They're not flashy. They might have nice things, but that's not the reason why they do what they do. They do what they do because they have a purpose in life. They know what their roles and responsibilities are. You've been such an encouragement to us today, and at the end of the day, like Tom is still going to new places, trying to grow, trying to get better. Tom probably has mentors in his life even today, and trying to learn and get better every single day. And I just love it.
Well, thanks. Well, back in those Jack Miller groups, back in the day, the only way we had to band together was RIA clubs, and then going to Jack Miller events. And that's where I met Walter. Was back when Walter started going. I had been going since I was 25 years old, and Walter, I think, started not too far after that in the 90s, but we would go, it was almost like a cult-like following that Jack had, where we would go over Walter's and over and over again, and you'd make connections, because there wasn't social media, there wasn't text groups, there wasn't just, all the things we take for granted today. It was just like the old-fashioned way. Get out and talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. And, if truth were be told, even though those social medias are great for bringing people together, you still got to get out and talk to somebody, right? Yeah. Yep. It's all about instilling trust and confidence in other people that you're somebody worthy of doing business with, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So along the lines with your experience in the real estate industry, one of the topics that you talked about when we were booking the show with you is you said to talk about the market timing and kind of when to sell. And you even mentioned it before when you were introducing yourself. You wish you would do a little bit more of buying and selling. So maybe talk about that, go into that a little bit in detail.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, getting started was somewhat unique, and I had good mentorship with the old time guys of real estate. I call them the godfathers of real estate in a way. But, it was all a bed of roses up until, like 10 years ago when the crash hit. For people that were getting started in the market, I was like, wow, good for you getting started. That I can see with my 20 years previous experience that you're getting in at the right time. But those of us who maybe had a couple $1 million in mortgages and houses that suddenly look like, whoa, I bought this for $60,000 back in 1985, and now it's back to $60,000. What happened here? But I've seen those houses go up to like $300,000 and then correct. And Tom, you're meaning to say that you're telling this audience that it corrected by like 75%? Guys, I'm telling you, man, Florida was ground zero and one of the hardest hit. Literally, that's the phrase, right? Hardest hit areas of the country. So, man, I had a couple rough years there. It was tough. And, like a bad stock portfolio, we had to really look at some of our properties, 3 dozen rentals that were worth $300,000. We were like, wow, okay, we got three vacancies this month, and each one needs, 3,000 or 4,000 for a punch out, and that's $12,000. Well, where's that $12,000 going to come from this month? And part of that reason was we live in a place here where the wind occasionally likes to blow at about 150 miles an hour. So we had just had Hurricane Wilma come through, and I lost every roof on all my properties, including the house that I live in, all in 4 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, wow. And oh my goodness.
How many properties was that?
I had about 3 dozen properties is what I was renting out. So, you talk about just, red tape of insurance settlement claims, the insurance being denied your claims by the insurance agent, going to court with, big insurance companies. It was a tiger by the tail. It really was. And we just had to look at some properties and get smart and dump some of these like a bad stock that was tanked and didn't go anywhere. We didn't know that in a short 7 years, all that value would come back. So we took some adjustments in our portfolio and we cut some of them turkeys loose. But I'm happy to say we have now literally next to no debt. It was a time to dump debt. It was a time to pay off debts we had at pennies on a dollar, because a lot of the big mortgage companies were at their knees. And in fact, I remember telling Walter, who could still hardly believe it, I had a $350,000 second mortgage on my house here. We had paid about, in the peak of the market, we had paid almost 1.1 for the house I'm living in today. And a hedge fund had bought our second mortgage, and they called me up with a hello call one day. And I said, they said, hello, we're your new second mortgage company. Your note got sold to us. And I said, well, the market's crashed around here. You guys are probably underwater by now. And to shorten the story, we had a long conversation on the phone. And they said, well, what do you want to offer us? And I said, well, I owe you $350,000. I'll send you a check for $3,500 and we'll just call the mortgage paid off. And they said, excuse me? Did you just say $3,500? And I was mad that day because the whole market was tanking, and I'm standing in a house with no roof, because the hurricane had torn off. I said, get it approved by your supervisor and call me back. Do you know they called me back 2 weeks later? They said, Mr. Nardone? I said, yeah. And they said, this is the hedge fund that we spoke to you 2 weeks ago about the $3,500 offer. I said, yeah. And they said, we got your offer approved. And we said, say what? I was just throwing a number out there. So I called my lawyer real quick. He said, wire me the money quick. I'm going to prepare the satisfaction of mortgage. And so they can't wiggle out of it, and make sure that it's fully satisfied with no recourse to the borrower and all the right language in there. So we did that, and I actually paid off a $350,000 note for $3,500.
Wow.
So the point being that, there's some really tough times out there that can happen, but you know what? In the real estate world, what's that phrase? Never let a good disaster go to waste. I mean, there's always a silver lining in there if you're in the business of buying distressed real estate. Mm-hmm. So I never let a personal lender get hurt ever. So it was only the big guys that kind of started the mess. So I felt it was even playing field.
Sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So along the same lines here, so when someone wants to move from a market to, so maybe they're in Fort Lauderdale, but maybe they want to move up to the Orlando area or whatnot, what are some things that they need to be on the lookout for and to know before they move from one market to another? Yeah.
Well, we're doing a lot of that right now, and which might have been the reason I brought that up as a topic today, is because in 2019, my wife and I, we talked about this, and we're somewhat making a shift, especially after spending a lot of time in Jackson with Walter and seeing what you could buy houses in other markets. And I haven't been to your market, Tom and Josh, but I imagine that, you have some similarities with the pricing of houses. Mm-hmm. The way I see it here now, my new philosophy in moving to other markets is, if I have a single family house that's worth more than, say, $150,000, it just doesn't make any sense to have that house, because it's like a diminishing rate of return the higher that house goes in value. And we just had 2 vacancies so far this year. And one house is worth about 180. The other one is worth close to 300. And we have a large equity spread in there. We're only maybe 20 or 30% leveraged on those houses. So all that equity, let's just say it's 200,000 approximately. That 200,000 is earning me $400 a month positive cash flow. I can move that same 200,000 to a place like Jackson, and I think they rent for about 700 there. So every $25,000 of tracked equity I see here is a $700 cash flow in another market. So I'm all for moving to another market, such as yours. I haven't yet investigated it, but I imagine it's got some similarities to the Deep South, like Mississippi, Georgia, and these southern states where you can buy stuff cheap. And actually, there's some markets in Florida where, you know, once you get away from that coastal rim that has all the high-priced houses, Florida gets really country really fast when you get into Central Florida and you go further north. So it's right now I'm at a time of my life where we're looking at, you know, plucking the fruits from our labor, and I see like you know, a house that has a lot of equity as a ripe fruit that's ripened over the years, and it's time to be harvested now and sold. And that gets me out of a hurricane area too that can really mess up a market for a while. So I'm probably going to 1031 a lot of my stuff out of the area and focus more on selling this year in my personal portfolio. And that's why I say more than $150,000 and trapping a lot of equity in one house, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't cash flow like it really should.
Yeah, actually, if you look at it from the curve standpoint, like there is this curve where different things make a lot of different sense in the different parts, and you're absolutely right. There is like this $80,000 barrier. As soon as houses hit $80,000, yes, they become more B or A class neighborhoods. Maybe they become a little bit better in different markets. If it's California, it might be still not. There's nothing there under $300,000, right? But it really, from a cash flow perspective, it makes a huge amount of difference. And like you said, especially if you have debt equity, I mean, gosh, if you just loan the money out at 10%, like $200,000 equals $2,000 a month. So like you do the math. I mean, it's trapped.
Yeah.
And what do you want in life? Do you want like owned properties, or do you want to have the cash and be able to do what the cash does for you? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a no-brainer. And especially like if you've already experienced it go way up and then way down, there is kind of a cycle there that we I'm not saying we're crashing right now, but we're definitely higher than the mead line in most markets. So
So one interesting thing that I saw on your website. So, you know, whenever we get a guest on the show here, I do a lot of digging and I skim through the websites and just try to find out some good questions that maybe have not been asked to you on other shows that you've been on or something like that. So one thing that I saw on the website was, here's the quote, is "Don't let ripe equity fall to the ground and spoil." So kind of elaborate on that. What does that mean?
Well, it means sort of what I was just talking about, that when you have all this equity grown into a house, I've seen before where literally I paid 50 or 60 grand for a house 20 years earlier, seen it go all the way up to 300,000 and then go all the way back down to 50 or 60. Now, maybe that crash we had 10 years ago was a historical event. So those of us that are older and have been around a while, you know, you tend to remember what you went through real easily. And I look at like, you know, that was ripe fruit that should have been picked at harvest time, because you just never know what's going to happen to a market. It was probably a historical event and may not happen for another 50 years. And then by that time, I probably won't even be here. But I think there's a right time to buy and sell everything and just harvest it and get to free and clear. You know, I remember clearly, and my wife, she was like, you know, last time in this crash, I had like $1 million of equity right here in my hand. And I'll encourage you, every time you get to $1 million in your hand, close your hand. So, but before something happens, I mean, all it takes is for that rocket man over there, as the president calls him, right? Rocket man, to shoot something off in our direction. I mean, hey, right? I mean, the markets can change. Who knows what the future has, right?
Yep. That's very interesting. Well, thank you for elaborating on it. That was great stuff. So,
Awesome.
so one, you have a few articles out there, some ebooks and books and whatnot. And one of the books that you have is Secrets of the Real Estate Millionaires. So give us one or two of those secrets that are in that book that are that's in the Real Estate Millionaire book.
Yeah, that was written about 10 or 12 years ago. It was written with some guys I respect in the business, and it was kind of a joint collaboration of a bunch of different authors, you know, to come together and put a book together of what we thought was some of our best tips. That was simply at the time, and mind you, again, we were in a different era, about how to buy foreclosures and some of the opportunities that were happening at the sale. I saw properties that were, man, seconds were getting wiped out. The banks were just taking ridiculous discounts. And that was more about buying at the sale and just realizing that for that particular time in history, banks were willing to take like 20 cents on a dollar, and they were happy to get out with that. That was probably like 2009. And we in Florida here, we were kind of first into that market when that market crashed. And so I guess you can say we were first out. It was like first in, first out. And I would go up to places like the Carolinas. I remember during that time, like 07, 08, and 09. I'm like, aren't things slow up here? They would go, no, it might take a month or two more to sell the house, but I mean, everything sells eventually. Well, the wave hadn't hit there yet. Tsunami was headed their way. And so that book was just about buying cheap at the courthouse sale, because there were some real deals back then. And even then, some things have changed in the sense that, back 10 years ago, our courthouse auction was the good old boys that decided to get out of bed and show up in the courthouse lobby that day. But about probably 6 years ago, they put it online. So now it's an eBay style auction, and the whole world can bid. So even that dynamic has changed. So you get to know your market and try to play the angles, right, to the best of your ability, and find out what makes the most sense to do where you are and make it profitable.
Mm-hmm. So 2019, if you were to rewrite this book, what would be one of the first secrets that you put in the book for a real estate investor?
Oh, good question. My first secret would say, find a list in a market that nobody else is targeting. And you guys know some of the smartest minds in the business, as I do. And we've all creatively asked ourselves this question, and we all have creatively at times thought, I've got the list. This is it. Nobody's got this. I'm not going to have any competition here. So, but what works in one area, there are no national real estate markets, right? There's only local markets.
Yep.
Okay. I truly believe that. And my market here is pretty competitive and pretty saturated, to the point like where I wouldn't try direct mail to an absentee owners list, not in my own county, because I know too many people are hitting that. But remember, because I mentor and coach students all across America, I've literally mentored in the last 6 years, I'm going to say over 600 students.
Wow.
So what I do get, and this is a big part of what I'm grateful for, is I get to tell them to try something, test a bit of marketing in the area that they're in. And then 2 weeks later, I get to see what their results are. And for those of us who've been around a while, you realize that's really huge.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can see what message to what market. That's always like the most important question you can ask in real estate investing. So
and what works today may not even work next year in the same market. So it's
correct. So maybe it's what message to what market and when, right? So yeah, so true. So I can tell somebody, don't do absentee owner postcards here in Broward County. But yet I know if they do that in a part of Alabama or Louisiana, and I've had students in some of those deep southern states where there's not a lot of competition, do that, and they get so many phone calls, they're overwhelmed. I mean, they get like literally, a 10 or 15% response rate from their direct mail. So yeah, it's what market, what message to what market, and when. That's what you always got to ask yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So we're going to have to start winding this podcast down. But Tom, it's been an incredible show. You dropped a lot of value bombs and nuggets on us. So thank you for everything you've shared so far. So we got 2 more questions that we're going to ask you. We ask every single person that we get on the interview. Excited to hear what you have to say. So you know Tom very well. You know what he stands for. And then obviously, a lot of the people that are in our mastermind and a part of our group and our network, which for good success. So for good success, that means a lot to us. It comes from the Bible. Joshua 1:8 talks about the quality of success. So for you, when you hear that term, maybe not the specific group of people, but when you hear the term good success, what comes to mind? What does good success mean to you?
What it means to me is a promise in Scripture, because I've been a believer. I got saved at age 14, I think it was, when I got saved, and I've heard that reference of Scripture over the years. So just the combination in that order, those 2 words, just brings Scripture to mind. And I think when you hide that and bury that in your head and your heart, that's one of the most powerful things you could do to make a difference in your life.
Amazing. Great stuff. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's definitely
We've never
where
had
we
anybody say that before.
derived it
That was
from.
pretty good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So
And then thou shalt be prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success.
right, exactly. So bury that in your heart, guys, and make sure that you do that, like Tom said. All right, Tom. So you got to leave the audience with one thing. So one thing only, whether it's a quote, a thought, piece of advice, maybe it's a book you've read that you enjoy, you want to share. If you had to leave the audience with one thing, what would that be?
You know, I just finished reading a book. It's a famous book. It's been around for a long time, but it's Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer.
Great
And
book.
she made a statement in there, which is so true. And the statement that Joyce made in that book was, where the mind goes, the man follows. And that's just so true and so powerful. So just make sure you're putting good stuff in your mind, because if your mind and your thoughts don't go there first, then your body and your life is never going to follow.
And that's why mindset is so important. That's why that comes across this podcast very often is mindset stuff. But awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So if you guys didn't catch that book, it's Battlefield of the Mind. And who's the author of that?
Joyce Meyer.
Joyce
Yeah.
Myers. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Tom, man, it has been an awesome show. We appreciate you jumping on and joining us today. And
Yes, thank you so much, Tom,
yeah,
for your
we
time
definitely
today.
appreciate your time. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what is the easiest way to do that? Maybe a website, email address, phone number, whatever you want to share.
Sure. If you're riding down the road listening to this podcast, if you'd like a copy of my latest ebook, I have a short text code. So instead of texting a number, you can text code the word mailman to 31996. It's called a short text code, 31996. Just text the word mailman and you'll get a copy of my latest book that I
Amazing. Great stuff. And thank you for being willing to share that with our audience. So you guys make sure you do that. So one more time, text 31996 and just text the word mailman and you'll get the ebook. So Tom, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being on the show today. And we look forward to having you back again soon.
Thanks, guys. You'll have to come down for an airboat ride when you're in South
Love it.
Florida. Give you a tour of the Everglades.
Awesome. Appreciate that. All right. So that is going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you all jumping on and joining us for this episode of the Good Success Podcast. And if you liked what you heard, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And then go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review if you can, or go to the app, download it. So go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store for Android, search Good Success, and then download the official Good Success app, because then you'll get to have access to every single one of our episodes, and it's just a lot easier to listen to it that way. And then the Good Success Mastermind, goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application there, and hopefully we'll see you down in Miami May 14 through 18. I know that's coming in hot, so make sure that you go and fill out your application and then see us at the Mastermind. You'll jump on a phone call with Tom, and we'll vet you. So the group of people that we have, you have Tom here, and I think Tom's going to be at the Mastermind. Yeah, awesome stuff. So people like Tom are going to be there. The culture is absolutely incredible. You guys, if you are listening, you're not going to be disappointed by the group of people that are in there, and so it's going to be great stuff. One more time, goodsuccess.com.
I don't guarantee much, but I guarantee that.
You guarantee that. There you go. So goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application and we'll chat with you. And then the Community Go Giver event, 80 seats available. Well, not right now, but that's what we're selling out at. So communitygogiver.com. Sign up now because we're selling out at 80 seats, happening right here in our office in Gary, Indiana. To learn more, communitygogiver.com. Pick up your tickets. Just go do it now. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on and joining us today. Remember to be a conduit and not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
And we'll catch you on the next one.